Hey everyone, today I've got something really special for you. I am interviewing Bryan Elliott, the guy behind the YouTube channel Behind the Brand.
I'm Ryan Tedder. I'm a songwriter, producer, TV personality, and the lead singer of OneRepublic.
He's going to talk to us about building brands, about how you can improve the brand that you have created for yourself. Whether you're a creator, an artist, a songwriter, whatever it is, you need a brand, and Bryan is the expert. Hey Bryan, thanks so much for joining me and joining my audience.
Sanjay, it's a pleasure.
I've been dying to talk to you, and after our brief conversation, I've come up with so many more questions. I've checked out your YouTube channel and I love what you're doing there. I was just inspired watching video after video. You've worked with some pretty amazing people. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Bryan Elliott. I'm a writer, director, producer. I am a former Universal Pictures home studio entertainment executive. I worked in the brand marketing and strategy division at Universal Pictures where they make movies. And then I got a chance to get a taste of production and I really got the bug. I soaked up knowledge with the intent of someday cutting the cord and starting my own production company. One of the key signals for me was in 2005 when this little website called YouTube launched. And I thought, here's this platform. You can be anyone. You don't have to be J.J. Abrams anymore. You don't have to write screenplays. You can, create your own content, become a creator, and you have a place to put it. And to me, that was a signal that the playing field is being leveled.
At that point, you kind of left your day job and just started your own business.
Well, yeah, and I had all these best laid plans. And then, the Great Recession happened in 2008. And so I panicked. I was really worried. We have 4 kids. I had 3 young kids at the time. Everything was at stake. And a lot of people were depending on me, to come through. And so in that moment of panic, I also thought, all right, I'm going to go back to my brand marketing and strategy roots and try and figure out a solution to my own problem. I'm going to literally create a show.
Hey, I'm Bryan Elliott. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Brand. Let's go check out our next story.
The idea was to reach out to innovators, entrepreneurs, and the people and the stories behind their success, right? So behind, and that's how sort of Behind the Brand, my series for entrepreneurs and freelancers started.
So your YouTube channel called Behind the Brand. Why the focus on the word brand?
It started with really wanting to pull back the curtains and tell the stories behind other successful people and how, and really with the intent to show you how they've done it so that you can take a page from their playbook and do something similar or learn lessons so that you can grow your business or your brand. I think that we are all brands. My friend Seth Godin would argue with me about this. He would say, I'm not a brand, I'm a human being. That's where we differ on opinion. I do think that we are all brands and that if we don't decide who we are and what we stand for, then someone else will apply a label or an interpretation, and it's up to us to help guide and influence that.
People in my audience who are artists or budding artists, right? There's this kind of divide of who they are as a person and the label that gets put on them as soon as they put music out there.
A brand is the interpretation of other people about you.
How'd you get started doing this?
I started producing music and managing music artists. In 1979, I managed an artist named Curtis Blow. He had a song, Christmas Rappin', and it plays every Christmas still. I'm from New York City, and that's where hip hop started, and that's where I started.
So wherever you have a touch point with other humans, this is where you have a chance to influence them to think or feel a certain way about your brand. You put out a certain genre of music. Let's say it's hip hop. To me, if I only see your hip hop music, to me, you're the hip hop guy. But you may also do jazz, or you might be, someone who is a teacher and teaches about how to make music. So we can put out in the world strategically whatever we want to put out. How we are experienced is what becomes our brand.
So my audience, of course, a lot of musicians, producers, social media creators. So if they're creating their brand, what do you think are a few things that they need to do to actually build it intentionally?
I think it starts with self-awareness. Like, who are we and what do we want to be? You may be a husband, a son, you may own this business, you may also teach. All of those things may be part of your, who your authentic self is. When you figure that out, then you can also decide what the priority is, what you want in terms of being fulfilled and being happy. And then you might also think about these other two questions. Who's it for? And the second question is, what's it for? The best thing to do is focus on your minimum viable product, or in other words, your minimum viable audience. If you're a musician, how many people, let's say you create a piece of music, how many people need to download that on Spotify or buy that music from you in order for you to keep doing what you're doing? When you can figure out the minimum viable audience for what you're doing, it makes becoming more niche easier. Look for a pain point in the market, or a gap in the market, a white space, a demand that's not being filled, a problem that's not being solved. That is a much better order of operations than coming up with a great idea and trying to go sell it to a market.
You know, this kind of sounds to me a little bit like how as artists kind of think, I'm going to create this song and I want it to be a hit song. Everyone's aiming for that. Everyone in the world is aiming for that. Every artist is trying to do that thing. But are you trying to say then that actually if you narrow down to what you do, what you can do best, knowing who your audience, you'll kind of narrow things down and you'll kind of maybe discover, I'm much better at doing this specific kind of hip hop. I don't have to be on the hip hop Billboard chart because I'm really good at this.
You can be an artist and you can just go for it, like whatever you're inspired to do. All I'm saying is that approach is risky because you don't know, you don't have facts, you don't have feedback. Henry Ford gets credited with this idea or this quote where he said, if I would have asked the people what they wanted, they would have said, I want a faster horse. He has a point, right? Like, so at a certain point, you've got to be the artist and you've got to sort of lead your audience. But what I'm saying is you can be a little bit smarter about the approach. If it's hip hop we're talking about, look at the landscape. Can you draft off of someone's success? I mean, there's a Burger King within a mile or two of every McDonald's for a reason. And even to be number 2 or number 3 in your market is, again, if you go back to minimum viable product or audience, it's the math. The math is probably pretty good on it, right? So that's a strategy. Or you look at, someone who is completely original. And you say, there's no one doing X, Y, Z out there. You have to be different. You have to look for what's in demand. You have to take all these things in consideration. And then when you do that, then you're mitigating your risk instead of this leap of faith. It's like over this giant chasm. And Seth told me this other quote that I love. He said, the person who fails the most wins, because built into that notion is we keep failing and failing and failing until we figure it out.
I usually ask people, how did you get this job?
Oh man, this started a long time ago. I was 12 or 13 when I joined my band, and we were just kids in school. I had seen, I would see movies like The Temptations or even Spice World. And I just thought, well, they're all having fun with their friends making music. And it's like, it's their thing. It's their job. And I wanted that, I wanted to feel like, I wanted that us against the world kind of thing.
It's that struggle though. I think especially with musicians, it's, there's some insecurities there. Are people going to like my music? Are they going to criticize it heavily? How did you get over that? Because you put yourself out there too. And you tried to build this audience and you started to build traction and get there. How did you figure out what was working and continue doing that?
There's a book out there that's a great book. It's called 1,000 True Fans. And the idea behind this book is that you don't need millions and millions. You just need like a handful. Michael Bublé is the most blatant example. He's an archetype of obviously Frank Sinatra, right? It's like he filled a gap. There was no more crooners or whatever genre you want to call that after Sinatra retired. And Bublé's like, you know what? I'm pretty good at this kind of crooner stuff. I love it. It's me. And I'll find a brand new audience of people who love this style, but bring it up in a modern way. So there's this great example I think the Washington Post did this social experiment years ago. Joshua Bell's a concert violinist. He's a, this amazing player. And the night before he was supposed to perform in this huge hall, which was sold out, by the way, tickets were hundreds of dollars. They put him in the subway. They put him in an old ball cap, ripped jeans, grown out scruff, whatever, and a violin case open for donations. And he's playing this $1 million Stradivarius violin in the subway. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there was $1 dropped in, but everyone pretty much just went along their way. Oh, there's another musician. That's part of the problem, right? Like, so if you're struggling, if you're an artist and you're struggling, if you have a business of any kind, there's probably two things to check right away. One, are you playing to the right audience? Joshua was not playing to the right audience in the subway. No one cared. No one paid attention. He didn't stand out. Right upstairs was his audience. People who were willing to pay hundreds of dollars to hear him play the violin, right? Wrong audience, right music, wrong audience. The other problem could be that you're not as great as you think you are. So you think you're Joshua Bell, but you're not yet. And so you need to go back and check yourself to see, okay, I'm not getting any signals. People are walking by me and no one's noticing my music. Am I as good as I think I am? Or am I playing in the subway and I should be playing in the concert hall?
I mean, I'm sure you've seen some success where you've put out certain content. It did very well. For people like my viewers who are trying to build that audience, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked this, because the follow-up to this is also sort of the Henry Ford idea, right? Where I know that my music is good enough and I know that I'm talking to the right audience, but they don't get it yet. So here's an example. I did this video with an author. Her name is Mel Robbins. And Mel Robbins wrote this book called The 5-Second Rule. It's all about, how we mentally pull the emergency brake and we procrastinate. We don't do the things that we know we should be doing.
I love that video on your channel, by the way. I mean, it was like a quick watch, but it just immediately clicked in my mind. I'm like, wow, this is a practical way to solve a really, really clear problem. Hey, you guys need to watch that video. I'll put a link to it, or I'll put it up here. Such an excellent message in that video.
The video was great. I posted it and I was like, and nothing happened. By all accounts, that video was a failure in terms of analytics. Like, it got maybe a couple thousand views, right? And it was just really, really underperforming. And I was mad. Like, I was disappointed because I knew it should be better. So I kept working at it. And I started noodling like the category and the title and the thumbnail. And I finally unlocked the secret, and I put it in the right category. And sort of like going back to the subway example, it was going from the subway up to the concert hall. It's like finally got in front of the right people. And the video took off, and it went from thousands to like hundreds of thousands. And now I think it's upward, almost close to like 2 million views. It took 18 months to get there. So here's me being the artist saying, I believe in this video. I know it's as good as I believe it is. It just hasn't found its right audience yet. And I'm going to keep trying because I know it's that good.
Through the journey that you've had on YouTube and social media, there must have been times where things didn't go very well. And I know I struggle with this sometimes. I know my audience does too. You put in the work, you're putting stuff out there, isn't going as you planned. What kept you going?
This lights me up. I feel fulfilled doing it. I feel like I'm doing work that matters. That's a Seth phrase, work that matters. It matters to me, and I know that it matters to other people. And that's part of my vision. I have this vision for what I want to become. I'm a work in progress, right? I haven't reached it. And I think probably it's one of these things like chasing your shadow. You never do quite exactly capture it. You're always in the pursuit of. If you can find the intersection of what you love to do and what you're great at, you will succeed. If one of those streets, that intersection is not there, like, you may be a terrific accountant, but if you hate accounting, you're gonna be miserable. You'll make lots of money, but you won't be happy. And if you're an amazing artist and you love doing it, but you're terrible you're terrible. You're going to be a starving artist, right? It's not going to work out. You need to find that intersection of what you're great at and what you love to do. And when you do that, it'll be this gift that you can give the people that you serve, and they will reward you with attention or money or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, that's in your goals. That's the way you do it.
I'm in the struggle just like you. And I believe if you're in it, you might as well just keep right on going until you get your reward.
I also think it's okay to change directions, to pivot, going back to my original thought, which is we are multifaceted. I'm not done yet. You haven't seen everything that I'm capable of doing. I have high aspirations to do many, many more things. But that's why I keep going. That's how I keep going. And that's my advice.
Amazing advice. And that's such a perfect way to end this interview. Thank you for your time. We love your channel. I'm going to put a link to Bryan's YouTube channel. Go watch his videos. He inspired me when I started watching his stuff, and I'm sure he'll inspire you too. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Well, let me just also say to you that what you do is a gift, and I respect and admire what you're doing. I think you're doing tremendous work, and I just want to applaud you for doing the work that matters as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.